Grabando, grabando.
¿Qué tal, Marc?
¿Cómo estás, Antonio? Debería decir, how are you doing?
How are you doing? Sí, hoy tenemos nuestra primera visita internacional. Sí, estoy
Muy bien.
muy contento, además, por ser quien es. Voy
Hoy
a
cruzamos
cambiar
el
al inglés.
charco.
¿Cambiamos al inglés o no?
Bueno, ahora cuando entre, ¿no, al bar?
Cuando entre lo cambiamos. Pues vamos a darle paso. Muy bien, pues aquí vamos a darle paso a nuestro súper mega invitado internacional. Hello, Tal. Welcome to our show, Café con Valores. We're glad to having you here joining us today.
Very good to be here. Would much rather have a real coffee, but that's okay too.
Yes, we have the cup here, but we have to.
I'm drinking water today, actually. I'm sorry for that.
Well, here in Spain it's later. By the way, it's later than in New York, of course. Okay, so thank you. I really appreciate to have you here in our show. You know my appreciation to you. So for the audience, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Mr. Tal Ben-Shahar. Tal is probably the most well-known expert in happiness in the world. He's behind and he's the creator of the science of happiness. He will talk later regarding to that issue. He's also BA in philosophy and psychology from Harvard, Ph.D. in organizational behavior. He's a very well-known lecturer because he taught the most popular class at Harvard, which was positive psychology, and the third most popular class, which was positive leadership. He's author of many different books, such as Shortcuts to Happiness, Happier, Even Happier, Being Happy, and many others. He's a very well-known public speaker. He's consultant and he's co-founder of Happier.tv, Potential Life, and the Happiness Studies Academy, of which my company, Efficient Happiness, is partnered with here in Spain in order to spread the science of happiness as well. So Tal, like I said before, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Today, friends, we'd like to start a reflection regarding a taboo subject, something is not common to talk about, but we think is really important, moreover in the times we are living right now. Last week in Spain, we had a news from La Vanguardia, one of the most important newspapers, about suicide. It said that suicide is the main cause of non-natural deaths in Spain. And from the range 15 to 29 years of age is the second cause of general deaths, only after cancer. We have also checked how is suicide faced in the US, in the United States, and according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, suicide is the 10th leading cause of deaths in the US, and the second for ages between 10 and 34. And the issue is that nobody talks about it. And we foresee that in the crisis, like happened in the last financial crisis, these rates are going to increase, unfortunately. So Tal, that is a very serious matter that almost nobody is talking about, and we like to face that from the science of happiness approach. So let me start with my first two questions regarding to that issue. The first one is, why do you think, according to your experience and to your knowledge, this happens in the first world where we supposedly have everything we need to live? And my second question is, how could the science of happiness help to face this problem in order to reduce these rates of suicides?
Yeah, so this really is a big issue and a very troubling one. I will just share with you a study that came out recently. So this is Jean Twenge from University of San Diego. And every 5 years or so, we get a picture of the mental health levels of teens in the United States. And every 5 years, this extensive research shows a little bit up, a little bit down, but generally around the same level. This time when they looked at it, when Jean Twenge looked at it, what she found was that suicide rates among teenagers went up by over 30%.
Wow.
This alongside a similar increase in depression and a similar increase in loneliness levels. And these are, of course, connected. It's with depression and loneliness that suicide is more likely. And the question that she asked was why? Why suddenly this spike now compared to 5 years ago among teens? And her conclusion, looking at all the data, and she looked at a lot of data, was, and I quote, the ascendance of the smartphone.
Wow.
In other words, the increase or the introduction in many ways for teenagers of the smartphone, where they're on all the time, meaning less face-to-face interactions, less real relationships. The virtual has taken over. And again, this existed way before COVID-19, when we were forced to interact virtually. So when we don't have the face-to-face interactions, when we don't spend time with people, depression increases, suicide rates increase because we have less support. That's one reason. Another reason, which is also connected to the virtual world, is our point of reference, our comparison. Because what we compare ourselves to are people we see online. And what do we see online? We see people having perfect lives. Everyone's having an amazing time. Everyone is in a perfect relationship, a perfect work, always happy, everyone except for me. And then I feel even worse. Now, I don't want to seem to be the only one, and therefore I put on the same face, the same facade, and I act as if everything is also great with me. And what I do is I contribute to that great deception, which leads to the Great Depression. What do we need if we're to be happier, if we are to feel less depressed and hence less prone, susceptible to suicide, is first of all to feel that we're not alone. We're not alone in our difficulties and hardships. Everyone experiences these difficulties. And you know what they say about suicide? Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I don't know of a person who hasn't entertained at some point putting an end to their life. You know, when you were a child or when you're older, it's fine, it's natural, because we all go through hardships and difficulties. And what makes it a lot easier is, one, knowing that we're not the only ones, that other people struggle as well, and that we'll get over it, that it's temporary. And finally, having supportive relationships. That's critical. It's critical to increase levels of happiness. It's also critical to reduce depression and sadness.
Okay. So according to what you said, how can we face, if we take into account the current situation we live right now, where we have been locked down for many months, and if we connect that to what you just said regarding to this need of having real relations instead of having virtual relations,
yes.
How could someone face this situation in order to avoid this depression or this attempt of suicide?
So, so 4 months ago, sorry, Mark.
Yeah, just to add to what Antonio said, because I think that can also add to your question, to your answer. Actually, in the last crisis that there was in Spain back in 2007 to 2008, data show that suicide rates increased 3x. I mean, the number of people that killed themselves increased 3 times what a normal year would be. So these times that we're facing now, which are complicated actually, and the uncertainty that we are facing, how can people go through that?
Yeah, no, this is obviously the question. So if the distinction that I made 3 months ago, 4 months ago was between real and virtual relationships, at least for now, hopefully this is temporary, right? But at least for now, this distinction is unhelpful. A helpful distinction is not the one between virtual and real, but rather between superficial and deep. Because even when we're right now on Zoom, we can have a shallow interaction, or I can send a message on my smartphone, emojis, laugh and or tear or whatever. That's not a deep relationship. But if I talk to someone on the phone for an hour or on Zoom, and we really interact and open up, that's a deep relationship. And that contributes. It's not ideal. Ideal is we're sitting in the same room, going to, sitting around the same table, playing in the same sandbox. That's ideal. But short of that, deep versus superficial is important. Now, Mark, specifically to your point about what do we do in difficult times, uncertain times? So there was research done by Jamie Pennebaker, who's a professor at the University of Texas, on journaling. And what he found was that journaling helps in general when, writing about difficult experiences, traumas. Specifically, one of his studies was about people who have just lost their jobs. Now, losing a job is potentially for many people a traumatic experience. So one group lost their job and they went about their life as usual. The second group, he asked them to journal about it, to write about it, what they're feeling, what they're thinking, what they went through, what they're concerned about. And they wrote it down just for, a few days, 20 minutes each time, so not a lot. As a result of spending a total of 1 hour writing a journal over a number of days, they were not just happier afterwards, they were also more likely to find a job when you looked at the two groups 6 months later. Now, why is journaling so important? It's so important because what it helps us do is make sense of our lives. Now, we can make sense of our lives through conversation with a friend. That's why we feel so much better after talking to someone, or a therapist, or by writing in our journal. But just keeping it in our head, again, when we just keep it inside and we're all alone inside, that's very unhelpful. Then we go in a downward spiral. When we bring it outside, whether it's talking to people about it, whether it's writing about it, that's much more healthy.
Okay. So thank you for the tools you gave us, because I think it's really, really important. And like we pretend with our show is to spread this kind of tools to the society in order to help them in their lives.
And Antonio, one more thing,
Yes.
The important thing, about whenever we have these thoughts or feelings where we want to end our life, is to remember that these thoughts, these feelings are temporary. Again, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And we need to think that this too shall pass. Those feelings will be over. And why is that so important? Because the difference between sadness and depression is that depression is sadness without hope. Depression is sadness without hope. So if we have hope that this will be over, that this will pass, that I'll feel better tomorrow or next month, that I'll find work 6 months from now, if not next month. If we have hope, then it remains sadness. If we don't have hope, we go down. Depression, and it could lead to extreme action like suicide.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Tal. And we have been talking about a very important issue for our society that nobody's talking about, or at least not many people are talking about. But now I'd like to move to another issue. What is
happier issue now?
What is the soul of our show as well, which are values. Café con Valores means coffee with values, So there's a question we make to every guest that join us to our show. What is the most important value for any guest? For you, what is the most important value that should guide the society we live in?
Be nice.
Be nice. That's great. That's perfect.
Just be nice. You know, there's a book by her name is Koval, Koval, I believe, called The Power of Nice. And they talk about how, you know, being nice is, of course, moral. It's nice, but it's also very practical, whether it's in a business, whether it's in a family. You know, I've been very fortunate to be married for 20 years with really an amazing wife, an amazing relationship. And the minute I realized that I wanted to marry Tani, you know, I knew, of course, I was attracted to her, and she was smart and she's funny, and the minute I realized that I wanted her to be, you know, my life partner, was when the word nice came to mind. She's just nice. She's a nice person, and it's so underrated in our world today. There's another organization that I'm a big fan of. Knowledge is Power program, KIP, and it's a school program in the United States, and they do fantastic work with children in at-risk populations. And they have a motto, and the motto is work hard, be nice.
And Tal, why do you think it is so difficult to be nice? Because actually, when you think about it, it's even difficult being nice with your beloved ones. Sometimes it's difficult to be nice with your parents or your children or your best friends. Why is it sometimes so difficult? Maybe it's because of ego, or why is it sometimes? Because I think that if you're nice to your friends and to the rest of the people, most of the conflicts are solved. But why is it so difficult?
Yeah, I think there are various reasons. One reason is because we ourselves are hurt, or you know, we're not nice to ourselves, and by extension, we're not nice to others. So I do really think that it starts with the self. You know, there's a study in psychological study, which is very cruel and horrible. It was done, you know, many years ago on animals, and they put two animals in a cage, and they actually gave an electric shock to one of the animal. The animal that was shocked, its immediate reaction was to attack the animal that was next to it. In other words, I'm hurt, you know, the automatic, without even thinking, where is that coming from? The automatic reaction is to attack the other. So many people who are not nice to others are unhappy or not nice to themselves. Or, you know, again, we're not all nice all the time. No one is. Sure. So when am I not nice or kind or patient toward my children? When I'm not in a good place. You know, if I'm all happy and you know and joyful, of course I'm going to be nice to others. And therefore, I think, you know, it starts with the self. Confucius talks about it in his philosophy. He says how if we want to affect our state, we need to begin with our neighborhood. If we want to affect our neighborhood, we need to go to our family. If we want to affect our family, we first need to start harmony within. So be nice to yourself. Cultivate joy, happiness, and you're more likely to be nice to others.
Okay.
Can I go, Antonio?
Yes, for sure, Mark.
I have a question. I mean, I'm pretty sure, but I have actually seen it that some people have already posed it to you. But you know that Aristotle thought that our end and the society's end itself was looking for happiness. But in the end, is happiness something physical, or is it just a word that we have just defined somehow to describe something that maybe we know that there might be, or it may exist, but we don't know it? Or is it something that exists? And also, do you think that we are happier now than we were like a century or 5 centuries ago?
You know, So happiness, like anything we talk about, is about definition. We give words meaning. It's not that God came down and said happiness is. It is important though how we define it. So if we define happiness as just pleasure, then I think it's a problem, because we experience ups and downs, and if we expect to be happy all the time, just experiencing pleasure, then it's actually a prescription for unhappiness. But if we see happiness as something which is more systemic, something which is broader, for example, happiness, yes, it is also about emotions, pleasurable emotions, and yet it's also about embracing and accepting painful emotions, which are part of being alive. And we see happiness as related to physical well-being as well. And we see happiness, the spiritual side to happiness, which is about a sense of meaning and purpose. And happiness is also about relationships, interpersonal connections. Happiness is also about the cultivation of the mind. Aristotle talked about that a lot. So if we see happiness as something which is more holistic, then we're more likely to find what we're looking for. Then we're more likely to lead an upright, fulfilling, and moral life. So yes, the definition is very important. And once we have our definition, and again, your definition may be different from mine, but I think it is important to spend time identifying what it is for me, and then pursuing whatever it is that will lead me to happiness.
So there's no universal definition, we could say, right?
There is no universal definition. However, we do have universal needs. So whether you're in Spain, US, or Japan, you want meaning in your life. Now, where you find meaning in your life, that's different. That's different for different cultures. And of course, it's different for different individuals, even if they're in the same culture. But that we need meaning in order to lead a full and fulfilling life, that is universal. That's part of our nature. Just as we have universal physical needs for certain food groups, whether it be protein or certain vitamins. Now, you may get it from tapas, and I may get it from from McDonald's. I don't know. Bad example.
Yeah.
Well, if some people say that happiness it's just pleasure, so McDonald's it's somehow pleasure for the taste. So it might be also a good definition too.
Right. Yeah. Well, depends what you have at McDonald's. Their salad is actually okay.
True. So, and do you think that we're happier now than like 5 centuries ago? So, do you think that society is becoming more happy, even though we still have wars, we still have suicides, we still have illnesses? We are somehow happier.
Yeah. There are different ways of measuring happiness. I would have loved to go back in time, 5 centuries ago, or even 50 years ago, and run an fMRI, a brain scan, on the people there and see, how are their brains different from ours. I suspect we would find a difference, because questionnaires, you always evaluate your happiness relative to your zeitgeist, to your reality. At the same time, the fact that suicide levels are going up, that's a sign that we're probably not heading in the right direction. Mm-hmm. Even depression, you can say, well, we couldn't measure it then, and we didn't have as much awareness of it then. Someone who's depressed today was considered sad, 100 years ago. But when it comes to suicide, that's a very objective, terrible, but objective measure of deep unhappiness. And we have more of it now.
Yeah. And let me just change a little bit the topic now, but I mean, also related to this, but in a different way, more related to the governance of our lives and like the state governance. Because when it comes to the fathers of the modern state, and if we go back to Hobbes, Locke, etc., they had they had this intense discussion of whether human was evil or good. So if we are all somehow good people, we may not need state, so we can live in a state of nature. For some others, like Hobbes, we are wolves. The man is a wolf for himself, so we may need, or we will always need a state, even though it's a dictatorship. Do you think that there is a correlation between being happy and being good, or being unhappy and being evil? I get, well, somehow you already responded to that, right? But so do you think that population in general terms is happy or not?
Yeah, you know, the obviously the discussion between Locke and Hobbes is a very important one, very relevant one. Even now, as people are they've always questioned the forms of governments. You know, should we have government controls, or should we have more laissez-faire? And I think that I think that we can learn important lessons from education, and specifically from I will refer to the work of Maria Montessori, who learned a lot from another Enlightenment philosopher, Rousseau. And what Rousseau and later Montessori talked about was how we have the potential for both. We have the potential for good and evil within each one of us. The question is, which do we cultivate? And I guess the answer to your question is in this question: we need to cultivate. Now, how do we cultivate the good side? By providing people, not by telling people or forcing people to be good, but by providing people with good options. Let me give you an example. So we talked about, food earlier. Let's say, I'll give you a real example. So my daughter was hungry, so she came to me and I said to her, sweetie, what would you like? Would you like a banana or would you like an orange? And she immediately went, I want a banana. And then my sister-in-law just walked into the house and she said, hi, Shirley, would you like some chocolate? Now, who is interested in a banana when you can have chocolate, right? She immediately went to that. And I think this, for me, captures the essence of a healthy choice versus an unhealthy one. And I think to take it in education in general, that's what Maria Montessori, that's what Rousseau said in his book, Emile. Create an environment for the children where they have healthy choices. So, if the choice for my child is, read Rousseau or read Harry Potter or read Aristotle, it's fine. These are good choices. I think Harry Potter, it's wonderful if they read it. But if the choice is, read Harry Potter or play Fortnite for 8 hours a day, he'll probably choose Fortnite. That's an unhealthy choice. So how do we create healthy environments for our children? How do we create healthy environments in our in our nations, in our countries? And to take it to the national level, that is more complicated. But more and more people are doing it. For example, have more parks for people where they can walk. Have more walking paths so people can walk to work instead. Have more public transportation so that we can, we take better care of the environment, and on and on. Healthy choices. This is what we need to think about. This is what many economists like Thaler, Nudge is thinking about. Healthy choices.
Okay. No, that is absolutely great. And Tal, we're almost complete the whole time for this short coffee. Would have been many hours with you. Like always, that's something I said last time with you. But anyway, we have almost completed. Yeah, right now we have just completed the 30 minutes of the coffee.
The plan.
The waiter came here and gave me the bill. So
the bill. Right, it's on you today.
Yeah, Yeah, no, today it's on me. Yeah, next time you. So guys, here we've had the privilege to hear Tal Ben-Shahar. He shared with us his amazing knowledge and his amazing experiences regarding the science of happiness applied to practical things such as the taboo issue, what is suicide, such as the thing of being nice, what is crucial for society, the conflict between control and laissez-faire, and this last thing that you said that I love, that what is that we need to cultivate goodness by giving good options, healthy options. I think that is a great end. And what we always say here in Café con Valores is that, ladies and gentlemen, this show was created to make you awake your critical spirit. Now you have to think of what we talked about and awake this critical spirit.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a very, very big pleasure.
For me too. Thank you both very much.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day.
Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
See you too.